Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Today I'm drinking the Glendronach Cask Strength, Batch 8. What's up everybody, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing this video with your friends, joining me on the Patreon, checking me out on social media. Anything you guys do to support the channel is greatly appreciated. Today, I've got a Highland scotch that we're going to be tasting, Glendronach. Now, Glendronach used to be an independent distillery before they got bought out by Benriach. Benriach is, of course, the subject of one of my most recent scotch reviews. And a little bit of a preview, recently, those enterprises were purchased by Brown-Forman, who is the subject of my next whiskey review. So keep an eye out for that one. But we're going to stick in the Highlands for now and talk about the Glendronach Batch 8 Cask Strength. Now, the Glendronach is actually sort of made of two different whiskeys blended together. It's got whiskey from Oloroso sherry casks and whiskey from Pedro Jimenez, or PX sherry casks. And I want to talk a little bit about PX sherry. It's now something that I've mentioned a couple times, and a lot of people don't really know much about Pedro Jimenez or why that's something worth noting. Pedro Jimenez is actually a white Spanish grape that's very commonly used to make a sweet, rich, dark dessert wine. And that's kind of a good place to put your mind at this Spanish dark dessert wine. Because Pedro Jimenez sherry, which is the cask that's then used to put the whiskey in and age it, is going to be that deep, sweet, dark, rich flavor profile. So if you're looking for a sweeter, deeper sherry note, the PX sherry is going to get you there, whereas other types of wine finish or other types of sherry finish might not have that same dark, rich characteristic. Those are important things to note when you're looking at finished whiskeys, but there might even be more important when you're talking about scotch that's aged in these casks, because a finish, you're just putting it in the cask for a little bit of time, but with this is aged for 10 years in a PX sherry cask, so that's a lot of time to have contact with that sherry. Once the two whiskeys are done aging for the 10 years, then Dr. Rachel Barry is the one who blends them together. Now, I may have mentioned her, I can't remember, but she also does the blending. She is the master blender at Benriach, of course, because they now own the Glendronach. Anyway, Dr. Barry will blend together the Pedro Jimenez 10-year whiskey and the Oloroso sherry 10-year whiskey and create this sort of cask strength, double sherried blend that is then released in different batches. And today we have batch 8. Now this one is at 61% alcohol. It's non-chill filtered. They don't add color. You can see for 10 years it's relatively light, especially for a sherry cask, but you know, Scotland is a very different environment than the United States, where bourbon ages very quickly. So it's kind of what you would expect, honestly. Now, while I'm pouring this, I want to go ahead and thank Joseph and Dave at Vine and Table. They're the reason that I have this sample. They've been good to me. They did not pay me for this. They have just provided the sample free of charge. They want my honest opinion. I will say they told me that this whiskey is available for, I think, $60. That's what my notes say, $60 for a bottle of a 10-year-old cask strength scotch. Yeah, you can really smell that sherry on the nose. It's not surprising because it's going to be a rather sherry-forward pour, given they're using two different kinds of sherry and that they're aging and not finishing in sherry, but it's really prominent on the nose. You get that sweet, dark fruit, that grape. I get a lot of figs in this. Yeah, I get figs, maybe some persimmon. Maybe, ooh, there's like a spiced honey in there. That's kind of fun. Like so many scotches, you can definitely smell that cereal grain. That's the malt, 100% malted barley going into these single malt whiskeys. Yeah, it's almost all that dark fruit, though. I get a little bit of the wood tannin spice, which is kind of nice. And then there's this malty sweetness. Maybe a little bit of like a lemon zest as well. You get sort of a slightly bitter, slightly citrus note. I'm also starting to get some like peaches and pears, some of those kinds of fruits. It's very fruity. More fruity than I expected, honestly. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be that surprised because the sherry is going to be fruity, but usually I get this sort of unpleasant wine note from sherry, but I think I might be a fan of the PX sherries. I think that dark dessert fruit comes forward more in them than Oloroso and others. There's still a hint of it here. I mean, this is a blend of Oloroso and PX sherry, but getting used to the different kinds of finishes, the different kinds of casks and how they affect the flavor is really important so that you can be an informed consumer and go, oh, I don't like that kind of finish. Oh, I don't like that kind of cask, so I probably won't like that product. Because typically, you're not going to be totally outright dismissive of an entire distillery. What's going to happen is they're going to have products you like and products you don't. That's pretty typical from my experience. Oh, and I'm starting to get some wildflowers. Ooh. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and give this one a taste. Oh, yeah, that oak is really prominent. Wow. Wow. You know, oh man. You know, the first thing you taste is that sweet sherry. Not surprising at all. But boy, it does not linger very long. As almost immediately, the sherry kind of is pushed to the side and you get this deep, rich, oaky, and this like black pepper on the palate and a nuttiness. Yeah, almost immediately that sherry goes away. You get this nice, sweet, fruity flavor right up front, but then very quickly it takes this left turn. That's probably camera left. It takes this left turn and becomes really nutty. I get a lot of pecan myself, and then there's this nice, some other kind of wood. It's not really oak. Maybe it's like a cedar. Maybe it's like a combination of this pecan flavor and this cedar flavor. And it lingers for a relatively long time. You can definitely tell it's cask strength. That's not lost in this pour at all. Oh, and I tell you what, coming back to the nose, I started getting more of those classic sort of almost like ocean spray notes that I always get out of scotches. I wouldn't call it briny necessarily, but it's sort of like sweet and salty. You know, people talk about a salted caramel. It's almost like a salted honey. It's kind of cool. The more I keep drinking it, the more the fruit notes sort of blend in with that rich oak and pecan and all these fun, woody, sweet, fruity flavors crashing together. It's really wonderful. The malt on this is pretty unmistakable as well. You definitely can smell the malt on the nose the more you spend time with it. The sweetness is predominantly a malt sweetness, and you get this almost grain malt flavor. It really is kind of fun that it has this fruitiness, then immediately moves to the malt, then it moves into the nuttiness, then it moves into the wood. This is a good whiskey for somebody who likes the sweetness of a sherry but doesn't want it to continue on, and somebody who likes that sweetness from a sherry but doesn't want the wine flavor, because this goes immediately from sweet sherry into undeniably nutty and woody. A lot of those old high wood, high oak bourbons give me some similar notes, although this wood is a little bit less sharp, a little bit less of the new oak, and a little bit more old aged. You can taste the fact that these casks have been used before, maybe I'll say. I don't think this is my favorite whiskey ever, but that's mostly a problem of expectations. So often, whiskey smells like one thing and tastes like another. And I love a fruitier pour on the palate. And this has a little bit of fruit on the palate, but the nose is just very candy and very fruit to me. Whereas the palate, you get some of that fruit, but then it immediately goes into this woodier flavor, and you get that unmistakable malty characteristic. There's almost like a Twizzlers kind of vibe too. The candy's there, but it's not the fruity candy. And so it kind of get like a letdown for me personally, because I wanted that fruit so badly and didn't quite get it. But make no mistake, this is a very good whiskey. It's complex. It's high proof without being too astringent or burning too much. It's well blended. I mean, I got to give credit to Dr. Barry on this. She knows how to make whiskeys that make a really wonderful impression and that take you on a journey. So if you got $60 lying around, it's definitely worth picking up. I mean, if you are a Scotch person, I think you'll be impressed by the value in this pour. I really do. And if you're a bourbon person, I think you'll be impressed by a Scotch that doesn't smell like you should like it. It doesn't on paper seem like you'll like it. And then you taste it and you go, oh, this tastes like an older bourbon. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. I would say it's a good whiskey. It's definitely a good value at $60. Holy crap. but it's not your fruit bomb, which it might smell like. And given the fact that it's got all this sherry in it, you might think it will be. So set your expectations accordingly, because expectations will tell you everything you need to know about whether or not you will enjoy a whiskey. Matter of fact, it's a fun experiment. Set up a blind tasting. If you put this in a blind tasting, I guarantee you it'll be beating whiskeys 2 or 3 times its price point, because blinds take away the dollar mark, and that's what people buy on. That's what people think about. They go, oh, is this a $200 whiskey? Oh, I paid $300 for this. It better be $300 good. Not always the case. Gotta find what you like. Gotta stick with it. Do blinds with yourself. I'm gonna blind the rest of this pour, matter of fact. I'll do a little whiskey, a little scotch blind probably in the near future, because I think I want to challenge my expectations, and sometimes you might be surprised, but it's a very solid pour. I definitely think it's worth $60. I think it's probably worth $100 at least, but give it a shot and see if you like it. All right, guys, I'm going to go. My glass is empty, but y'all keep drinking like professionals. Cheers. It really is empty. Shit.